the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
Spot the next 3 years.
Yeah. Well, final thing here on the Vols men's hoops front, Ryan Schumpert, as we continue on our year-end analysis going into this offseason here. Zakai Zeigler finished up his third year in the Tennessee basketball program. What worked, what didn't for Zakai this past year, and one thing you would like to see him get better at going into his final year with Rick Barnes and the Volunteers.
What worked is that when his knee was working and he had some comfortability back playing. I mean, a disaster would be over dramatic, but he was pretty bad the first month of the season. And then he was pretty dang good after that. I mean, he was the clear number 2 on Tennessee's team in SEC play. I think he averaged about 15 points per game on 38% shooting from 3-point range to go along with 7 assists per game, maybe even 7.5 assists per game in the 18 SEC games. He was really good. And it was a culmination of, we saw a lot in the year before, the year he got injured, 22-23, I guess that would be. We saw flashes of that, of him being just a really good complete point guard in Rick Barnes' system. He's figuring it out. I think we saw it with about as much consistency as you see from a college basketball player last season. I mean, I can think of a handful of games. He played bad at A&M. He played bad at Missouri. He played bad that first game against South Carolina. So it's 3 out of 18 games in SEC play. Besides that, he was pretty dang good besides that. So I think, and there's a level of Jemias we talked about last week. I think there's a similar level of he kind of is who he is. It feels like he can get a little bit more polished, continue to grow and be more comfortable, but it feels like he's close to maxed out there. And he's 5'9". What I'd like to say is to see him get better at finishing at the rim. I just don't think you're going to get that from a guy that's 5'9". So if you make me say something to find a little bit of more consistency with the jump shot, it was good for, most of SEC playing on. It just felt like there were some nights where it was real bad. And obviously it's hard not to think about the last game of the year where it was one of his worst shooting performances of the season against Purdue. And if he shoots at a more normal percentage or clip for him, Tennessee could have been headed to the Final Four.
We've gone back and forth on this. Do you think it matters ultimately, like his minutes? Because that's something like we're in the Tom Thibodeau minutes experience here with Zakai in Tennessee. Because I mean, you're looking at he's having to play just full halves, and obviously come tournament time, I think is a little bit different, just because like it's do or die, single elimination. You got to ride with your guys, and it's not time to experiment. And those the 3 minutes that he sits could be you go -4, and that's the difference in the game. But part of that is like early in the year, like you got to play some more guys, or you got to give some more opportunities because you're going to be really good anyway. And you're going to, by all accounts, like Bart Tarvik has Tennessee as the best team going into this year. Once again, like you're going to be there. So maybe you need to prioritize giving more run and letting Zakai breathe and worry about the minutes more. Do you think that's something that matters ultimately for Zakai and making sure he's ready to go and he's at his best come tournament time, or do you think that's just kind of overblown and Zakai is just different in terms of his motor and just the kind of shape that he is in? Because I mean, Zakai is just, it seems like he never wears down, but he was pretty tired at the end of the NCAA tournament this past year.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's overblown. But it's not that it doesn't matter. I mean, I like the way Tennessee handled it last year for the most part. I'm looking at the game log now, like before the stretch run, obviously the final 4 games, he only played 29 minutes against Kentucky. I think he had some foul trouble in that game. 35 against South Carolina, 38 Auburn, 38 Alabama. So yeah, he played a ton in the championship run. Before that, it's a lot of low 30s, into the mid 30s. And I did a good job. Like the Vandy game, they destroy Vandy. He plays 24 minutes. Blowout win in Arkansas, he plays 30 minutes. So I think they did a good job in the games where they won handedly of not wearing him out too much, which obviously I think has been a weakness of Rick Barnes at times, especially early in his tenure, of just playing the starters way too much in blowout games. So I think it's something you continue to monitor. Yes, you don't want to run him into the ground. But I don't think it's as big as a deal as a lot of people make it out to be. And it's kind of a chicken and egg situation where you have to play him a lot in these good games because there's not a true point guard on the roster, and it's hard to get a true point guard, a backup point guard on the roster in the portal, because when, like you said, in the NCAA tournament, these games matter. I want Zakai Zeigler out there for no less than 38 minutes, and so it's going to be hard to get a guy in the portal that's going to sign up for that. So it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg situation there, but as a whole, it's not something that I find overly worrisome.
Final thing on Zakai, how many free throws did you guess he took at UNC against Kentucky, against Kansas in the ACC SEC Challenge, and then in the Maui Invitational against Purdue? How many free throws do you think he took total?
Zakai, and so those last two games in Maui and the North Carolina game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he played really bad in Maui. I think the North Carolina games when he started to play a little bit better. If I remember right, they maybe inserted him into the starting lineup. He really doesn't shoot a whole lot of free throws besides winning time and in the bonus. I'll say he shot 4 in those 3 games.
Very close. 3. All losses for Tennessee. And some wins here for context. When Tennessee came back against Georgia, he shot 10 free throws. Against Illinois in that tough top 20 environment, 6 for 6 from the line. Against Kentucky, 7 for 10 from the line. Against Auburn in that thriller, 8 for 12 from the line. 6 for 6 against South Carolina. I don't know. You just go through it. For me, that's something I would probably push for Zakai. Is I think Tennessee is, when he's able to just attack, because he's looking for guys in the corner. Zakai is not someone who's actively, when he gets inside, looking to shoot. It might, some of that size, some of it's just the nature of Zakai's game. That is something that I would like to see in this final year of Zakai. Is Zakai going to the line more consistently? I don't want him to put his body on the line and get hurt doing this more and more. But I do think Zakai is such a great free throw shooter in the upper 80s now at Tennessee. There's a correlation between Tennessee winning and losing based on Zakai attacking and drawing fouls and putting opposing guards in foul trouble, because there's just a lot of great guard play in the SEC and just in college basketball as a whole. That might be nitpicking here a little bit, but for me, if there was one thing, because I'm not really worried about Zakai's shot. I think it's fine for what it is. I think he shoots it enough. I don't think he's afraid to pop it, especially when he's open from deep. He does his heat check threes every now and then. I'm not really worried about Zakai and his shot. And I'm not really worried about Zakai at all. Just really anything else.
No.
He's a pretty polished, great college basketball player. But I guess just the final thing would be really cool is if Zakai had the most amount of free throw attempts in his career this year. I think that would be good for Tennessee ultimately, is Zakai shooting more free throws in as many big games as possible.
Yeah, no, I think that goes hand in hand with what I was saying. I'm just trying to be more effective at the basket.
Yeah.
I do think the stat you just read, not completely, but some of that's pretty skewed because he's shooting a lot of in-game free throws because he's Tennessee, him and Dalton. Really, he was Tennessee's best free throw shooter. Obviously Dalton had his own struggles, and he's the point guard, so he's got the ball in his hands a lot at the end of the game. But no, you're right. And to me, the question I almost think with how good Zakai is going to be this year is more around how good are the guys around them. Do these guys come in? Do they hit shots at the rate that they did at their other schools, at the rate that we expect them to? Is there another guard or a wing, whether that be Chaz Lanier or Cam Card, that can be a dude that puts pressure on defenses with the way he can get to the basket and just take a little bit of that creating duty off of Zakai like Dalton did last year? Obviously, no one's going to do it to the level that Dalton did. To me, that almost is the bigger question.
But is Tennessee better if Cam breaks out and takes that with Chaz Lanier? The duo of those two, is that better than just having Dalton be the sole guy? That's a fair question.
I mean, if both of them do it, I think it's...
Which is possible. I don't know if you saw Ben McKee on the podcast last week. Cam Carr. If he makes that year 2 jump and Chaz Lanier is 80% what Tennessee hopes that he can be at Tennessee, that's, I think, a maybe better offensive upside team than what we saw last year.
Maybe. But my thing is Cam Carr can make a big year 2 jump and average 10 points a game, and Chaz Lanier can be 80% of what we think he is, and he averages 12, 13 points a game, and that's all good.
Yeah. We should throw Igor in that mix
definitively, too. I just don't think that's definitively better than what Dalton gave them. So,
but at least you're in the ballpark.
Yeah, which is obviously the whole key here. And I think they will be in the ballpark, if not, just as good offensively. And there's a number
I
of
think they're
ways
gonna
they
be
can do
better.
it.
I think the offense actually finishes better in Kempom this year than last year. It's my guess. I'm
Yeah, I
still
think
gonna
we
die
talked
in the
about
cell
this.
if they're healthy.
Yeah, and I think that's completely logical. It was your line last time of something has gone disastrously wrong if they haven't finished
Yes.
if in the same area. As we were discussing the Bart Torvik numbers that projected him at that
Mhm.
time to finish like 60, I think it's up to 43 now. He
Yeah.
updated it this week, which does seem a lot more accurate.
We need
But
to keep
still,
getting it
step
down
back.
though, because 43 is not good enough. Like I don't think you can win a title with the 43rd best offense
No,
in college
not a
basketball.
national title. No,
No, I just don't think you
um,
can.
no, I agree. So all that to say, if I'm like projecting Zakai's numbers next year, what the guys around Zakai do is to me the more important question than what Zakai is. Because I think we know what Zakai is, and he's a guy that you trust a ton. He's got some limitations that come with being 5'9", but he's a really good passer. He's really good at creating. He's a solid shooter. And he's, the head of the snake for an elite Tennessee defense.
I like it. Ryan, what can the good folks check out from you and the team over at RockyTopInsider.com this week?
Yeah, plenty of Tennessee baseball.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas podcast. Hell yeah.